August 31st of this year has been appealed to the Planning Commission by the applicant, and a Planning Commission hearing date hasn't been set, and once it's set, we will send out a notice. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the staff, hearing officers on items not on our agenda? Seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 1609 Mountain Drive. Anytime you're ready, Mr. Cato.
Hi.
Hello? Okay.
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
Hi, Danny Cato, Senior Planner for City Santa Barbara. I'm filling in for Joanne LeConte, who is the case planner on this project. The project is a request for an open yard modification at 1609 Mountain Avenue on the west side. And I'd like to orient you to the site first of all. Here's the site plan. In blue is the property boundary with Mountain Drive at the bottom. In yellow is the existing building outline. In pink is the as-built addition of a bathroom and a laundry room and water heater. And then in orange is the remaining open yard. I've already forgotten. Did I say it was an open yard modification that's being requested? No. Yes. Okay. So basically, this is an as-built addition, meaning it was built without permit. The original open yard kind of encompassed this whole area, including the pink and the orange. And it was about a little bit less than 1,100 square feet. The requirement for open yard is 1,250 square feet with a 20-foot minimum dimension, a 20 by 20 area. This didn't meet the 1,250 because it was only about 1,100, but it did meet the 20-foot dimension. And with the as-built addition, now it's reduced in size and it doesn't meet the 20-foot dimension anymore. So staff is still recommending the approval of this modification because although it doesn't meet the minimum dimensions or size, it is still a quite usable area by the applicants or the owners, the residents. And if you look at the floor plan, here, then we'll do this in combination. If you put this together like this, you can see that here's the as-built addition, which is the thing in pink. There's a door that's right next to it from the dining room that goes out into the area, into the yard, and it's quite, the minimum dimension is about 15.8, I think, right in this area, but this is all, 16, 17 feet wide. This area down here is a little bit less usable, but still, we believe it's usable. It doesn't affect any neighboring property, openness from the street. There doesn't seem to be a lot of public detriment to this open yard modification. So there are a couple of conditions that we are proposing. One is that oh, sorry, I forgot to mention another as-built item is a fence along here. You can see it in the photograph. Right here, it's a wrought iron fence on top of a little concrete block wall, and that needs to be reviewed by transportation operations staff to see if they can support an administrative exception for overheight fence within the site triangle of the driveway. So that's a condition, and the other condition is that all the violations that are in ZIR and are abated. And they are proposed to be abated with all the improvements being proposed here.
Okay, great, thank you. I do have a question regarding the location of the open yard area. Mm-hmm. It is an R1 lot. It is 5,000 square feet. Right. There's a provision that allows lots less than 6,000 square feet to provide the open yard area in multiple locations. It still has some of the same...
the 20 by 20?
Yeah, the 20 by 20. But you can put some of it in the remaining front yard as long as it doesn't exceed a certain amount. So I was wondering why this small area is not included too, because if you include this area here, it gets over 1,250. So as part of their modification request, that the trade-off that although we're there... So then it would get closer to 1250. Is it just because we traditionally look towards the backyard as the area for open yard?
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
so
that's
too.
true. I mean, I basically forgot about that. Right, this area, you're right. This area here could, although it doesn't meet it still has a 20-foot minimum dimension.
Right.
So technically, it doesn't count either, right? But
if we're calling these areas that don't meet it too,
right.
then we can get it
if you add it
closer.
to the area, that's. Hang on, I think we figured this out. This is 30 by.
It is, I didn't write the dimensions, but it's like 310 square feet
Yeah,
in the remaining
yeah.
front yard.
That would put it right over the. That would put it right
Yeah,
over 1250.
well, I got right at 1250.
Yeah.
Yeah, the house is situated back in the setback originally, so it kind of constrains us a little bit more even.
Okay, yeah, that was the question I had, because it does say in the description, it's a modification for the location of the open yard and or to reduce the size. So it, I was just kind of wondering what areas, so that's.
Yeah, that counts as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, would you like to state your name for the record and provide
I'm
additional
Tony
comments?
Z. Case. I'm representing the owners, which they're out of town this week. I agree with everything Danny said. And yeah, that's a good catch. I wanted to point out that the house originally was situated well back from the setback line, so that further constrained our open yard back here. And I think you're right. Most of the time we consider the open yard area behind the house. I don't think we're allowed to use the front yard.
In this case, we are.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, if we add that in, we're getting close to that 1250. We're actually, fairly close. But yeah, the flow, the traffic flow through the house. There's a couple French doors here, so it's very accessible. And when you count all these areas here, the owner has plenty of room for outdoor living, and they can barbecue and no problem. So they would be in favor of keeping the bathroom, the second bathroom in there, because it's only got one bathroom from the original house. So it'll be pretty handy for them.
Okay. I do have a question regarding a statement in your application letter. It says that this is a detached garage/storage area. It's only it's not even 200 square feet. This is supposed to be a garage, right? There's no storage in there?
I think that's a misprint. Yeah, this is all garage. There's no storage in there.
Okay.
Right.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that it needed. Okay. So it's a
Yeah.
one-car garage. Okay. Those are my questions for now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who'd like to address the staff hearing officer on 1609 Mountain Avenue? No. Seeing no one. Have we received any emails or phone calls?
Not that I'm aware of. No. Not that I'm aware of. No.
You're still on, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site and walked the site and looked at the neighborhood, and I agree with staff's assessment that that the proposed addition is an appropriate improvement. And my questions, the remaining front yard is allowed to be counted, but just because the front setback's not allowed to be counted, it does provide another outdoor area for open yard to be used. And I noticed up on this porch, there's a table and chairs, so it's evident that this area is being used also. So I can make the findings outlined in the staff report. I would include that this area is part of your non-conforming or part of your open yard area designated, because then the combined total equals the 1,250 square feet. And in regards to the area of the addition, it is appropriate to have it in the rear of the lot, given it's a bathroom. It flows, has the layout of the house. It helps the flow of that. In addition, if you were proposing an addition in the front of the house, that would or could potentially significantly change the character of the street, given the street setting, the setbacks, the porch, and all that. So in terms of trying to find an area on the site that doesn't reduce your non-conforming open yard area, it wouldn't, I don't believe it would be appropriate to add it in this area, so that is an appropriate location on the site. So I want to add in the findings just a statement to that fact that any addition to the rear of the residence, so any addition, not even this one, would reduce the existing non-conforming open yard area, And then also additions to the front of the area, front of the residence could adversely affect the neighborhood character. So just kind of laying out more thought process on how I got to to be able to approve the modification. And you read the two conditions that staff was proposing?
What were they again?
The administrative fence height, and then
we spoke to transportation about that, and they're okay with it because the fence is basically, we can kind of see through it.
It's open, yeah.
So it acts as, it doesn't feel like it's over 42 inches, so they're okay with it as is.
And this is just a question, so when the administrative exception's approved, is there conditions placed on it that it stays open, or is it just a blanket approval? Like in the future, is there a possibility that it could just be changed to solid, or?
Well, the approval goes with what is proposed. So if this is what would be proposed, that's what would be approved. It's not, and we can put conditions on it to specify, but it's not a blanket. It's not a blanket condition. It's not a blanket approval of any fence of 42 inches.
But so the description, does it say to allow a fence over 42, an open rail? I mean, does it describe this type of thing? Okay, that was just my question.
Yeah.
All right, great. So with that change to the findings, I can make the revised findings and approve your project subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report. Okay. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period, and if that was to occur, Danny would contact you.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
The next item, this next project is 1123 Garcia Road. If the applicant would like to come up to the table. Good morning.
Good morning.
Anytime you're ready, Danny.
Okay. My name is Danny Cato. I'm the senior planner in charge of the zoning section. I'm making the presentation for Joanne McConkie, who was the case planner. Sorry. Danny Cato, senior planner for zoning, making the presentation for Joanne LeConte, who is the case planner. This is a request for a front setback modification and an interior setback modification at 1123 Garcia Road. To orient you to the site, Garcia Road is on the bottom of the sheet, and this is a through lot. So Alameda Padre Serra is at the top of the lot, and it slopes from Garcia up to APS. In blue is the property boundaries. Yellow is the existing house, and in pink is the proposed deck and stairway. Now, there's a couple of aspects to this property. One is the removal of an as-built patio cover, which is all the way in the interior setback, and then removal of a stairway that goes up to it. There's an existing deck that's not crosshatched. It's this area right next to the house. It's about 5 feet wide, and that is proposed to be demolished and then rebuilt bigger, adding basically another 3 feet on the eastern side and about another 6 feet on the western side, and then a new deck a new stairway that goes up still in the interior setback, but farther away than the old one.
Actually, I think that there's a little to walk around, a little X area that way.
Yes, and that part of the deck that would
still be within the existing
still within the setback.
Yeah, or and also within the existing stairway.
Right. Now, so the way we looked at this, the house isn't built parallel to the street. It kind of comes at an angle, even though it's parallel to the side property line, and so the way we're looking at this is that because of the way it's oriented, this sticks out in the setback more than it probably would have had it been turned turn parallel to the front lot line. And so this is about, at its closest point, which is right here, it's about 22 feet from the lot line. And instead of in black is the existing 30-foot setback that's required in this zone. We're recommending approval of this deck because it doesn't really have an effect from openness from the street from Garcia Road. It's elevated about 10 feet off the street, maybe even a bit more than that, actually. And again, we believe it's an appropriate improvement. This is the view deck. The view kind of comes out this way. And we're recommending approval subject to the condition that, let me back up a step and talk about the interior setback. Again, like I said in the description, the stairway and the deck are as proposed to be reconstructed, are farther away from the property line than the existing situation. There's quite a bit of dense vegetation along the side that isolates it sort of from the neighboring property. So we're recommending approval of this as well, with a condition that vegetation remain. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Right. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Yes, my name is Warner Young. I am the architect of record for this project. I'm here next to me is Sasha Ablett, the owner of the property.
Okay.
So everything that Danny said is correct, and so we are just requesting this modification in order to improve the existing condition and also provide a safe deck, safe usable outdoor space. The deck right now, as it sits, is no longer usable and has fallen into disrepair, and definitely needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And then also, I'm sorry, I wanted to point out too that this is very dense vegetation, and the view from this street here, you only get a little peekaboo of the deck as you kind of drive past. So it's actually very screened. This neighboring property is significantly higher, and it doesn't seem, by the way I look at their property and walk this area, that there's much use of this land here. So this screening here really helps to kind of minimize the kind of visual impact of something that we're requesting to enlarge.
Okay. And there is a condition that screening be kept in accordance with our municipal code requirements.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any questions for you right now. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1123 Garcia Road? No, seeing no one. Have we received any emails or phone calls?
No.
Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site and review the neighborhood and walked around the site. I looked in the back area. It's not the backyard, since you do have a front yard or a street frontage, but it's typically viewed as the backyard. Because one of the things I look at is there other areas outside of the setback that this deck could be proposed? I know you have an existing one. You could just demo and rebuild it as is and not require a modification, but since you are expanding it, that's why you need the modification. So when you look in the backyard, and I was looking at your pictures here, here's the garage. And there's not really a good picture, but you can see here's the retaining wall that's denoted here. You can see it just over the car. And it's steep. It's significantly sloped up to the street. So in terms of usable area for your property, it is in the front yard here, which makes sense. It's a view lot. Your orientation is towards the front. So then I look at, okay, can you do a deck in this area? Well, that wouldn't really make sense because it's off the garage. And again, it's really steep. So how about a deck over in this area? Well, when you look at the floor plan, the deck area, that's the front door. And here's the floor plan of that area. So there's a bathroom in the front door entry. So in terms of location of where to put it to be usable and given the site development, the front yard is the best location. So then, I look at the scope of it. You are getting closer. In this area, it's 3 feet, and over here, it's about probably 6 feet. However, when you measure this distance, I think it's 20 feet, which is still a good setback, and this here is about 17 feet. But given the orientation and the slope of it, I agree with staff's statements in the staff report that it's not going to significantly alter the streetscape, and that there is some existing vegetation. It screens it. I'm sure it would be maintained so that you can still have a view, but even if it's how it is right now and it's okay with the property owner, it seems like it would still screen the deck. And then in terms of would it be a significant change to the streetscape if you could see it? No, there's a deck there now. It's usable. I think it would enhance the streetscape. So I could make the findings for the front setback modification. In regards to the interior setback modification, it makes sense to have the stairs over in this area. I guess the alternative would be in this area, but it provides access to not only the deck but the side patio area, which is legal and it's on grade. So, and then you do need to have a little extension of the deck so you can get around the house. So in terms of what you're proposing within the interior setback, and like you said, with the grade difference and the existing development towards the Alameda APS. Everybody knows what APS is.
Close enough.
I know. The APS frontage, in terms of having additional development in this area, there's not going to be a significant impact, so I can make the finding regarding the interior setback. I am going to add to the finding regarding the front setback just to further state why it's appropriate to have the deck in this area, and that the lack of usable open area outside of the front setback of APS. So include that statement in the finding that's another reason why that it's appropriate, that the modification is supportable. So with that change, and then again with that, you've reviewed the condition regarding landscaping and you're okay with that? Okay, so with the change to the finding regarding the front setback modification, I can make the findings and approve your project subject to that condition. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt that this warrants additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period. And if either of those situations would occur, Danny would contact you.
Great.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item and last item is 1424 Salinas Place, if the applicant would like to come up. Good morning.
Your plans are colorized.
Oh, are they? I mean, I know they are, but they're the only ones.
Tony Bellman, I'm the planner assigned to this application. It's a proposal to convert the 2 existing detached single-family dwellings on the site to a 2-unit condominium development. The discretionary applications are a tentative subdivision map and a condominium conversion permit. Sorry about that. So the site is an 8,450 square foot parcel, R2 zoned, and The property line is here. We could go. Do you have site photographs? Or we can look at these are black and white, but they'll suffice. But there's an I don't know if we'd call it an abandoned street, city street right of way, or unused city street right of way to the north, and the property has an easement. When they built the second unit behind the original, this is the front house facing Salinas Place, and they added the second unit behind, and they were allowed to get an easement to encroach on the city property for the driveway to go around the existing house to get to the rear house. The ABR liked that configuration with the two separate driveways because one of the condo standards is each unit have its own separate identity and sense of entry. So the ABR liked the way it was configured with regard to that. This is a picture of that driveway and the city, the easement on the city property where they've done some landscaping. It's a rather sloped lot. It's 16% slope, sloping down from east to west. So the houses look like one story on the uphill side, and they're like 2 stories on the downhill side. The front house, you go in the garage at the lower level, and the way the rear house sits, the garage enters from the east, and the garage is on the upper level of the rear house. Just because of the way it's coming in from the uphill side. So this is the rear unit. The garage would be on the uphill side. So it fits pretty nicely in with the slope. The open yard is provided in a courtyard between the 2 units. This is looking from the driveway toward the west, down as it steps down. So this is higher and this is lower. Here's the courtyard at the lower level with the driveway above. Just pretty much existing. One of our development application review team comments was to improve the sidewalk. So they've actually already done that. They've completed the public works permit for a new sidewalk as requested by the transportation planning staff and public works staff. That was really it in terms of the construction needed to the existing configuration, with the addition of a couple of private storage spaces inside the units. It's required for condominium conversions. So the front unit is...
I saw it was down under this.
Right.
Or it's in the garage.
So this is upper level. So in the rear unit, it's in the upper level. As we said, the garage comes in on the upper level, so they're proposing to build this storage unit. It seems like it's accessible from the garage as required.
Well, that's my question, is that private outdoor living space, each unit shall have at least 200 cubic feet of enclosed, weatherproofed, and lockable private storage, in addition to guest linen, pantry, and clothes closets customarily provided. So this is provided inside the unit. I don't think that meets the requirement. It needs to be either above, 4 feet above the ground in the garage, or somewhere else accessible to the unit. This doesn't meet this requirement. So it does say such space shall be accessible from the garage or parking area for the units it serves. That doesn't mean right inside the door of the unit.
One other option that maybe you could consider is granting an exception to providing that. We considered that when we were reviewing this, because these are 2 detached buildings and there are only 1 unit in each building. It almost seems like once you go inside this house, it's all private anyway. So do you need private inside of the private house or not? So
well, the idea is for like yard stuff and that. So, it's not for, it's for things that customarily you use outside. But we can discuss that. That wasn't noticed for an exception. We can discuss that.
So the front unit one is on the lower level. And I think that is similar to what you just mentioned, given that this is a 24-foot deep garage. They had room to do it.
Yeah, it's in the
very
garage,
easily
yeah.
for that unit. I think that's about all I have to describe. If the applicant wants to present or add anything.
Well, let me see if I have questions for you first, and then I'll let them. Okay, well, you need to discuss the densities.
Okay.
You discussed the physical elements, so can you discuss the general plan and zoning consistencies?
Right. So, per the general plan, it is medium density residential, which calls for 12 dwelling units per acre. And as this is configured, it's slightly over 10, well, 10.4, I think it calculated out to. So it complies with the general plan density. With the zoning ordinance, let's see, I wrote down some figures here. So given the slope density, the zone calls for 3,500 square feet of lot area per dwelling. But with the slope, this lot there was a slope calculation prepared to show that it's actually 16% slope, so it's in the 10 to 20% slope category. So 1.5 times that 3,500 square feet is required per unit. So it does not conform to that. That would mean the lot would have to be 10,500 square feet to allow 2 units. So it's non-conforming to the zoning ordinance with regard to slope density in the R2 zone. But it is consistent with the general plan of 12 units per acre.
Okay, so the findings here are switched then. So the finding 2 says that it's legally non-conforming of the density requirements of the land use element. And number
Right.
3, it doesn't mention that it's legally
I
non-conforming.
did notice that this morning. I looked at it again yesterday and I didn't really see it, but I saw it this morning.
Okay.
So, yeah, those are reversed.
All right.
It's non-conforming to the... Well, the condo conversion ordinance, it says except as provided in the condo conversion ordinance.
Yeah, and the condo conversion ordinance allows for it to be legally non-conforming, but that should be
Right.
Noted in the findings.
Right.
Because it... Okay. That was just so that's my comment. All right, would you like to state your name for the record and provide additional comments?
Ernesto, representing the owner.
My name is Martin Munoz, and I'm the owner.
Okay. Would you like to add anything?
Yes, regarding the storage. So you want that outside of the building envelope? Is that correct?
Well, it can't be within the unit itself. Sometimes I've seen it, and I don't know if it'd work in this case. You'd have to talk to transportation staff. That those cabinets that are elevated, so you can still get in the garage.
I don't have a problem with that. I think it will look perfect the way
Okay.
you're approaching it.
So-
I think it will be better because anyway we'll get the face of the vehicle inside and we can have that's what I see everywhere. So I don't think it will be a problem for me.
So
to do that
yes.
for you.
Okay. So I wouldn't require it to be in the garage, because if that doesn't work, it needs to be somewhere else that meets our setbacks. And then also the open yard, and I would like you to explain a little more, or Ernesto, maybe you can, or the open space, how it meets, because it is an R2 zone, so you can break it up into several areas as long as it's 20 by 20. And I saw this note's 255 and this note's 888, and that's not 1250. But then is this?
Yeah,
I didn't
I marked it up on
see
here.
this
We're
one.
using the 15.
The 15%.
15%.
Yeah. But you still need one area 20 by 20, which you have. I think you have it right here, 36 by 24. So you have the one area 20 by 20. But so then that's the part I didn't see here when I was looking at the plan. I just saw these two.
So I wrote this very small, but anyway, we've got the 888 plus the 255 plus 115 over here. 15% of this lot is 1267, but then there's another little piece that we could add, 3 by 5 for another 15, and then another 10.5. So you add all those up, and you get to 1283 provided and 1267 required.
Okay.
so they meet it.
Okay. All right. So anything other than the
I don't think
responding to
we have
the
anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing, and no one's here. Have we received any calls or
I have not heard anything.
letters?
No.
Okay. I think I haven't received any. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site and visit the site, and it's evident that you've put a lot of work into it. It's, kept up. The one comment I have is that there's cars everywhere, and that's a problem. It was parked. They were parked in the front yard. They were parked in this open yard area. They were parked all along the driveway, and that's a big problem because they are supposed to be open, and they're not supposed to be parking in the front yard. So one of the things I was thinking to help discourage that is to require a curb to be along the whole southern way, or some physical barrier to prevent the parking in those areas, because it's not designated as parking. It wasn't approved as parking. So parking needs to either occur on the public street or in the garages. And I noticed at least this garage had a bunch of stuff in it. So they need to be open and available for parking, because that's what they're
Do you
they're for.
like some sort of a planners? Because I like
Permanent. It needs to be physical. You can't be movable. It has to be permanent,
Like a lip,
physical.
like a concrete lip or something.
A
Sidewalk.
curb, something that prevents the cars, that the cars can't go up and over, and then, so it has to be some physical barrier along here to prevent cars parking in the areas that are supposed to be open and landscaped if we weren't in a drought, open areas. In regards to the physical elements, they're good-sized units. You will be required to do the smoke detectors. That's just a standard requirement. I'm sure you have them anyways if you're renting out at least the back unit. Separate utility metering. I had the questions regarding the storage, and that's something that can be fixed. I'll put a condition that storage needs to be provided on the site, and then you can work with Tony in the appropriate location, but it can't be inside the unit. The laundry facilities, I don't know about the equipment, but I know that that's a required standard application requirement. Parking's fine, physical elements, outdoor living space, we discussed that. The question I had, and this relates to the parking and landscaping, is regarding the refurbishing and restoration, where it says all main building structures, fences, patio enclosures, carports, accessory buildings, sidewalks, driveways, landscaped areas, irrigation systems, and additional elements as required by the staff hearing officer or planning commission shall be refurbished and restored as necessary to achieve a high quality appearance and safety. So that's where I'm getting at the curb or the physical barrier to make sure that the landscaped areas stay landscaped. I know there's stepping stones or more decorative elements in that area, but it's a hardscape element, so just to keep it looking nice and not having cars all over. As Tony explained, you are over zoning density, but that's allowed in terms of the nonconformity is built legally. You have building permits for them. And the conversion of them, it's still going to be 2 units. It's still going to be the same number of bedrooms, so it doesn't affect the existing situation. And you are in conformance with the land use element density, so that's another benefit or reason why a condominium conversion could be supported in this case. And I think that's all the comments, but it's a nice project. I thought it was nicely kept. I think it would be a benefit to the neighborhood. It provides an individual ownership opportunity for someone, and it meets the requirements. So I can make the findings both for the tentative subdivision map and the revised findings for the condominium conversion, so that number 2 would indicate that it is conforming to the density and the policies in the general plan, and is legally non-conforming to the zoning ordinance. And then I want to make a minor change to number 5. It reads, the proposed conversion has mitigated impacts to the city's low and moderate income housing supply. It says by agreeing to pay, and by paying. Yeah, it's an ordinance requirement. You have to pay. So just change from agreeing to pay to paying. Staff is proposing a number of conditions, and you've read them and understand them. All of them? Okay. Actually, I do have a question of where's trash. It says there's a trash and recycling area. Where is that?
In this driveway right here on the side, right here.
Okay, and you've looked at it and it meets ordinance requirements, or is that something you'll check
We
during
didn't
the?
see it.
Okay.
We haven't reviewed it.
Okay. Well, for the plan that you submit for the conversion permit, that will have to show all this, and then it'll also have to show you storage areas. It will have to show this trash and recycling that meets zoning ordinance requirements. So, and then regarding on page 3 of 8, number 6C, where it talks about garages available for parking, I want to add the word shall. It says a covenant that includes a requirement that all garages be kept open and available for parking. I'm going to put that all garages shall be. It's the same thing, but it's just more clear. And then the condition I stated about a physical improvement, physical barrier, I'm going to put that under requirements prior to physical standards building permit issuance. So under the community development section, I'll just add it in there that a curb or other permanent physical barrier shall be constructed along the entire south side of the driveway to prevent the parking of cars within the front yard and landscape hardscape areas in areas not designated for parking. So with those changes, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report as they were altered today, and subject to the conditions of approval again as they were altered today. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day review period, and if either of those would occur, Tony would contact you.
All right.
Okay? Great, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I adjourn the meeting.